This is Patty with the Florida Inns, and I'd like to introduce you to Rob Fulton of the Association of Independent Hospitality Professionals, and he'll be presenting the national travel and tourism trends and issues that are affecting our industry right now. So, if you have any questions, you can write them, and we'll try to get them answered throughout the broadcast. So, with that, Rob, go to it.
Okay, thanks, Patty. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to talk to you. Sorry I can't see everybody, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And for those I met in Florida, really appreciate the chance to get to spend time with everybody. Sadly, amongst a very difficult time for all of you. So I hope everybody's recovering and doing well. But appreciate the opportunity. I'm just going to give you today kind of a 30,000-foot view on some travel and tourism numbers, some trends throughout the country, and I just want to talk a little bit about what I see as some of the more significant issues for our industry that I think that we're facing together, and some thoughts on working collaboratively to address those. For those that don't know me, just real quickly, before I took the position at AIHP, which was in January of 2016, so it's almost been a year. And I think most of you probably know AIHP is a fairly new organization, founded in June of 2015, and like I said, I started in January of 2016. So really just kind of getting to the tail end of our first year. But I spent the last 20 years prior to taking the role at AIHP in the travel and tourism industry in Pennsylvania. So I live in the Hershey, Pennsylvania area, and really from the West Coast. Seattle area is my home, but been in Pennsylvania for the last 25 years or so. So interesting perspective. In Pennsylvania is a very significant travel destination. I think we've typically been about fourth or fifth in the country, of course, behind Florida and California and others. But it's kind of provided me a unique perspective, I guess, is my point, that just the different types of things that have an impact on travel and tourism, and of course specifically on bed and breakfast and community. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. Like Patty said, feel free to ask questions. My information is on the last slide at the end, and I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions that you have. Let me just run through this real quick. I just would make a selfless plug for our upcoming 2017 summit. Many of you may have heard, be aware of this already, but just wanted you to be aware that we're partnering with the California Association and Select Registry to put on our 2017 Inspire Summit, January 29th to February 1st on the Queen Mary in Long Beach. So again, all the information is on our website. You see that there at the bottom of the slide, but just wanted to be remiss if I didn't just make a plug for that. We're excited. We have about 330 innkeepers that have registered so far, and we have a full marketplace, which is 67 exhibitors. So really looking, shaping up to be a great show. So hope to see many of you there. So let me just jump right in here, and like I said, I'm just going to kind of give you some 30,000-foot view numbers. I think they're interesting, and your things that you're paying attention to, of course, are specific, to Florida. And Patty was just telling me that she was going to be participating in a meeting here coming up about talking about the types of legislative issues that will be impacting Florida here in the near future, and we'll talk about some broader issues at the end. But one thing I wanted to mention, so a bed and breakfast industry study, some of you may remember this, but the last really comprehensive study that was done was in 2012. I think they were for 2011 numbers, and many of you may have seen that or have a copy of that study. So this is, and I'll mention this at the end, but one of the issues that I see, for the industry, again, is that we don't have recent, really compelling data in terms of operations for you to compare yourselves against, others throughout the country. As an association, for us to be able to talk to our legislators and those that we're lobbying about, the real impact of the industry overall. So what I wanted to say is in 2017, we're working on getting a study completed. We're working with some industry partners. We haven't really finalized specifics yet, but we really think that this is a significant priority. So I just wanted to tell you that this is coming. So some of the numbers that we're talking about are probably somewhat outdated, but it's really all that we have. But 2017 should bring a more robust study. So I look forward to sharing those numbers with you when we have those. And I think giving us the tools that we'll all need to advocate for why our industry is has such a significant impact. So let me just talk about kind of an industry overview. These are some numbers that we do have. Again, these are numbers that are a little bit older, and some have been updated, but some haven't. But I did want to just kind of talk to you about the overall industry overview. So 2015, the bed and breakfast industry estimated worth about $3.4 billion. Later, when I talk about some other statistics from a national perspective, the U.S. Travel Association has shared, you will see that this number kind of fits into that. So about 17,000 inns that represented throughout the country. Again, that's a number that we use fairly often. Again, I'd be curious to know when we do a study in 2017 how accurate that is, but that tends to be the industry standard. Inns, average inn employs about 4 to 5 individuals. Average occupancy, just under 44% there. Average rooms, 6 rooms. You see the daily rate there of $150, and the average revenue per room of $58. 36% have achieved a historical destination. Again, something that we're seeing more of in certain parts of the country. And then just some statistics on perspective of owners in terms of 72% of couples and 79% that live on site. And you see the data source there. And that a lot of these numbers were coming, that data source is using that previous study from 2011, 2012. So again, we'll look for some updated numbers. You see the pie chart there on the on the right-hand side. Again, location in terms of suburban versus urban and so forth. So I always find this to be interesting. Again, this data source is from the Little Hotelier, but just some of the amenities that inns provide. That again, we're starting to see more and more of this as customers or guests are looking for more unique experiences. We had somebody from Berkshire Amenities do a webinar for us about a month ago, and she did a really fantastic job. And the webinar was all about how you can attract certain types of guests that are looking for certain experiences, in large part based on the amenities that you have, not only within your property, but potentially partnering with others outside for trips and restaurants and wineries and those types of things. So I'm sure this doesn't surprise you, but just thought this was an interesting slide. So one of the other things that the numbers show, and again looking at how you reach your guests, and again some of this will not be new to you, but just maybe solidify what you maybe already feel. And again, I'll be curious as a lot has changed, really from technology from earlier numbers in 11, 12 to what we might find in 2017. So I'll be curious to see how this evolves. But 85% of guests saying ability to book online is important. Again, I'm sure that's no surprise to you. And then you see kind of the percentages there of of how they do that. Most important factor on the internet, again, quality of views, reviews, location, website impressions. Just thought I would share with you what statistics are showing if you hadn't seen those. So I wanted to just spend just a little bit of time talking about kind of some key national numbers, tourism numbers that I think are important. Again, I was in Pennsylvania, I'm in Florida. As I travel the country and talk to other states and other associations and innkeepers, of course, every state has its own uniqueness. But there are some things that are happening at the national level that do shape, the type of visitors and guests that you may be seeing, or give you ideas and thoughts on guests that you may want to attract. One of the great, I think, really effective national associations is the U.S. Travel Association. I've been involved with them for for about 10 or 15 years, and they do a fantastic job representing the industry nationally. Of course, they're really the broad-based industry, and we've been talking to them about ways that we can make sure that the bed and breakfast and small independent lodging community can be better represented there. I think there's some room for improvement there, but the lodging component is certainly important. So they had put out some pretty key numbers for 2015, and I just picked some highlighted numbers that I wanted to share with you. So I wanted to just talk, I don't know if this is how it looks for you guys in Florida right now. It does not look that way in Pennsylvania. It's very cold and dreary, but I'm envisioning that some of you may have this view or hopefully have that view. But I'm just really going to focus on the leisure traveler more so than others, and I thought, that would be important statistics to know. So direct spending on leisure travel, again, kind of specifically to domestic and international travel, totaled $650.8 billion in 2015. Pretty significant number. I know in Pennsylvania, the international traveler in particular is a growing market for us. We do not have sales tax on our shopping here, just as an example. So I know a lot of the Pennsylvania folks here in the bed and breakfast industry and others kind of use that shopping as a real tool or enticement to attract individuals or guests to stay, and particularly in the Lancaster area, which is not far from where I live. The shopping, we have a large bed and breakfast population there, and the shopping is a significant part of that community. So just as an example, it's kind of a nice partnership there. So spending on leisure travel specifically generated almost $100 billion in tax revenue. Again, these are important talking points as we talk to legislators. So for me, a lot of that is up on the national level, which is why national numbers are important. It's trying to make the case for our industry's impact on a national level. Certainly those can be broken down by state, and I'm sure that you have those for Florida, but very, very significant impact. And again, we're trying to communicate that we're more than just guests coming in. We're helping fund other programs, in the government. Nearly 4 out of 5 domestic trips taken are for leisure purposes. I'd be curious, what you all thought that might have been. It's I've had different reactions to that number. Some thought it was high, some thought it was low, but 79%, are taking trips on for leisure purposes. I know in some states that may vary with conference and meeting business as well, but. So I thought, this was an interesting stat as well. I was wondering and, asked, my family in particular, tends to ask, so what are the types of things that people are doing when they're traveling, particularly leisure travel, to the U.S. domestic market? And so these are the top 5 based on the numbers that U.S. Travel sees. Again, I'd be curious if, any surprises there, but visiting relatives, shopping, visiting friends, fine dining, and beaches. It's a funny story from New Mexico. I was in the New Mexico Association shortly after I was there to see you all in Florida, and they chuckled at the beaches one. I guess they had done some other tourism office in New Mexico had done some survey work of potential guests or travelers, and one of the things that came back on that survey, and I think it was in the top 2 or 3, was beaches, and just speaks to the message of some confusion that they weren't Mexico, they were New Mexico, and kind of interesting what how people respond. But I think we know that beaches are a big part of that. So one of the things too that I don't know if you all see this as well, but I mentioned the shopping component that specifically to Pennsylvania, but we see a lot more reunion travel. I don't know, again, depending on the location, if that's something you're seeing in Florida, but we are seeing more families doing kind of destination reunions or doing more activities when they have a reunion versus maybe kind of the typical things that you might see. I know here in Hershey, that's a significant part of their business, that the family comes from. That was interesting. Sources of travel spending, again, this kind of goes back to that original One of some of those original numbers I was talking about, the 3.4 billion, which we think is kind of the estimated value of the bed and breakfast and inns component. So when you look at those top 6 categories based on travel spending, kind of sea lodging there is number 2, and then what we think is almost $4 billion of that component is related to the B&B or inns or small independent lodging. So again, I'm be curious to see with new 2017 numbers how that stacks up. I'm expecting that that's probably certainly grown some. So public transportation. So again, travel through airports and trains and buses and those type of things, and then drive to destinations and auto transportation for number 4 there. Retail, and then recreation and amusement. So probably no surprises there. This is just a kind of a graph of what I just showed you, but just some of visual. So just kind of looking at from a visual perspective, you can kind of see where the largest categories are. So this is a pretty significant one. If you don't know this, and I'm sure that you do from Visit Florida or somebody's figured this out in Florida, but this is a great stat to use when you're talking to elected officials. And that is, so the example here, of course, is on the U.S. household, we pay $1,192 more in taxes without the tax revenue that's generated by our industry, the travel and tourism industry. So, like I said, I'm sure you do know what it is in Florida. If you don't, I would encourage you to find out. I think it's a great talking point because it gets to this point that, and we had this debate, in Pennsylvania for years, and that is that while travel and tourism and bed and breakfast industry and amusement parks and the wine industry and all the great aspects that we have of travel and tourism, they're certainly fun and family oriented and and leisure travel, but it is a business. I mean, I have to tell those of you on the phone that that it's a business, and it creates jobs and it supports local communities and it helps people. And I think the more that we can get that message out, that the bed and breakfast and inns and the small independent lodging component of this industry is a very significant contributor, and we just need to do a better job at that. I know we struggled here in Pennsylvania, and hoping to help make that case, in a better way on the national level through what we're doing for our lobbying efforts, through AHP. But I thought this number was pretty compelling. In Pennsylvania, I think it's maybe $600, just shy of $700 a household, just to kind of give you a comparison. So, just wanted to talk just a little bit about direct spending. I kind of like those unique stats to break things down, that again, to make it a little more compelling, just to showcases the breadth of what we have to offer. So again, direct spending by resident, an international traveler in the U.S. This is how they broke this category down. So every day, $2.6 billion of spending. Every hour, 108 million, 1.8 million a minute, and 30,000 a second. And I think that's pretty impressive. So these are the kind of statistics that we hope to, help use to make our case. So travel is among the top 10 industries in 49 states. I'm still not sure what the state is that's not. I sent an email to ask the question. It wasn't in the study. It just uses statistics, so I'm not sure what that state would be. But again, that's it's very compelling. Of course, I know in Florida, I'm sure it's number one, if not number two. So you have a very compelling case for for what you all do for your state and for tourism in general. I thought this was interesting as well. Kind of always curious how people see themselves. And what U.S. Travel found out was that, and again, this number is actually even a little bit older. This goes back to 2012. The rest are all 2015 numbers, but 84% of travel companies do consider themselves small business. Of course, that speaks to what we do and who our members are and the industry that we represent, with small independent lodging. But again, I think this idea that it's not just the bigger companies. So just using my example here in Pennsylvania, Hershey Park and some of the larger attractions, while those are significant parts of drawing people here and getting overnight. It's not, it's not the majority of the types of companies that make up. And of course, our industry is a significant part of that 84%. And small business, I think, as you all know, it is important that decision makers understand that is I think I found to be a pretty significant touch point. If you can help them understand that we are talking about small business to a large extent. So number 7, which is where travel ranks in terms of employment, again, compared to other industries. So think of hundreds and thousands of types of industries that exist in this country, and the fact that we're within in the top 10 is pretty significant, compared to some of the other ones. So this is kind of my last statistic. Again, just kind of taking some of the ones I thought might be pertinent. So 1 out of 9 jobs depend on travel and tourism. Again, I think we're part of the messages, and I think that the benefit of and the impact that you all have is that you employ individuals, and that you are creating jobs, and that you're attracting guests to your communities, and those tax revenues that get left behind create jobs. So it's a great kind of cyclical partnership. We can get those that are making the decisions to understand that. So in the case of, imagine that this is probably significantly higher for you in Florida. In Pennsylvania, it's about 3 or 4 out of every 10, which is how we did it. But so let me just talk a little bit about issues that I think that we're facing. And again, I don't want to. I know it's always a little challenging when you're on the phone, so I don't want to overextend my welcome by saying too much. But I just want to highlight some of the things that we think are important, and things that that we're working on, that are in our strategic plan as an organization, and that we want to coordinate and help our state association partners. What I didn't say at the start, and I wanted to thank Patty and the board and for all the great work that your association does. You've been great partners. You've been very supportive. Again, AIHP is a new organization, and trying to kind of get our feet wet and find our place in the world, is never easy. And and you've been very supportive. And it's a significant priority for us to have strong state association relationships, so that we can help each other on these type of issues. So these are just kind of my top 7. Again, these are not in order, so don't read this as a priority. These are just as I was thinking about things that I thought were facing our industry as I've traveled, and some of these are overlapping with things that I may have done in the past as well. But constant change in our industry. I don't have to tell all of you how what that challenge is with what we're seeing with the sharing economy, and all that is changing on a rapid basis, technology and marketing. And the challenge for us as associations is to really be on top of our game with this. And I think this is something that we really have to do for those of you that are our members, and make sure that we're giving you or providing you, through education, through advocacy, through networking, whatever the situation would be, opportunities to stay, abreast of that change. Each of you are running a business. It's a lot of work, I know, and it's a big time commitment, and it may not provide you the ability to stay on top of everything that's happening. And so I know that's why you belong to your Association of Florida, and why people join national associations is to stay abreast. So I just say that as kind of a philosophy, but we're really strategizing about best ways to to react quickly to issues that are going to impact you, impact your bottom line, impact your guest experience, maybe impact the amount of guests that you get. So just think we have to, and I think it's okay to embrace the change. I know that some of this change comes with some trepidation and some concerns and some frustration. That doesn't mean that, at least our philosophy at AIHP doesn't mean that we don't address it, but we're a big believer in the second point, and that is collaboration. So trying to go to the source and figure out how we can address the things that are concerning or impacting our industry, as kind of a first approach. And again, I talked about the importance of collaborating with you in Florida and, and supporting each other. We appreciate what you're doing. The sharing economy and kind of 3 and 4 and online travel, OTAs, in terms of, grappling with what's happening there and trying to have an impact on decisions that are made, which is difficult because these are large companies and we, in some cases are not as maybe a significant part of or we don't have necessarily the resources to make as much of an impact that we have. And then we talked, as I've been out around the country in the last couple of months, there's been a lot of talk about kind of trying to preserve or address the concerns with what can be the erosion of the bed and breakfast brand. I'll say, where others are calling themselves bed and breakfast but are not, or confusing the guest experience with not, feeling that they think that they might be going to a professional B&B and they're not. So we know, we all know what some of those issues are, and we'd love to have further dialogue, as we go down this path. But those are things that that we need to address. And again, that kind of comes back to the change. That change comes with some trepidation and some frustration, most certainly, and probably some anger in some cases. But we're trying to do what we can on a national level. And we have a commitment to our membership and to the industry to do the best job that we can at working with national organizations that are impacting, whether negatively or positively impacting our industry. And that's one of the values, from a national association where we see our role with you is to try to foster and to grow those relationships where you're focused on Florida and making sure that Florida is providing you the support and the things that you need as a state. We want to be able to do that on a national level and then try to link up what different states are seeing so that there's some collaboration that, hey, this is happening in Texas and maybe this would work in Florida, kind of a thing. So you'll hear more about this in 2017. We're working on some initiatives to have some input and influence, we hope, into what some of these national groups are doing with in terms of their impact on travel tourism. So but definitely, obviously, we all know that these are significant issues that we're facing. Lack of compelling research. I said this at the start, so I won't belabor this, but it is difficult, and I know this just from my 22 years or so of lobbying for travel and tourism, that going in to make an argument for more funding or better regulations or addressing things that are hurting our industry is difficult without a really compelling case. It's not enough. Unfortunately, it should be, but it's not enough just to make the case. So the study and the research that we hope it gets done in 2017 will help us make that case, and then that can also be shared, of course, down the line to the state to also make that. Inconsistent state laws, again, codes, regulations, ordinances. I get many calls a day from different states around the country wrestling with how to address what they're facing. Again, whether it's through Airbnb issues or OTA issues or home sharing concept, which tends to be a prevalent issue right now. But there are others, and we're trying to figure out how we can support you, certainly at the state level. With the inconsistency in what states are doing, where it works in one state, but then it doesn't work in another, and there's without that consistency. So that's a big task. I'm not sure we have a magic answer for that at this point, but I do think it's a significant issue that we need to be addressing. So I just have that on our list. Number 6, membership and associations. Again, as we as associations look to represent their constituency, membership is continues to be a challenge. I think we have to figure out as associations how to, of course, make sure that the value and the benefits are there. So that's our responsibility to demonstrate why our members should be paying dues. But getting individuals involved, I mean, everybody, I have to tell this group, time limitations, family limitations, resource limitations. I mean, we're all so much more bombarded with requests and and things that are going on in our life. It's so difficult to be involved. And I've spent the last maybe 10 years talking to college students around Pennsylvania about this idea of volunteering and being a part of an association that represents your industry. And I think there's this perception that millennials and others don't join in particular, and that idea of getting involved and making a difference has kind of changed. So I kind of in the middle on that. I mean, I think that there's some validity to that. I think there are lots of this next generation and younger individuals that do want to be involved, but I think they just maybe don't understand how, or this idea of associations. I've been doing association work, like I said, for 22 years, and my family still does not understand what I do, what an association really is. They're not always easy to explain. If you're not involved in one, it's difficult to understand. But we're going to have to address this. It's happening all over the country, local, regional, state, B&B associations, and on the national level, we're all struggling with this idea. So, and if associations go away or they don't have the resources that they need, that's going to have a significant impact, because then that lobbying and representation starts to disappear or erode, and then we even find ourselves, less effective. So this is something that we'll continue to talk about. And then the last one, this is just, again, something that I see, I'm sure that you may as well, as I talk to family and friends in my, in my circle, that not all of them understand what bed and breakfast, or inns are, or they have misperceptions of what they think they are based on some past story or experience that they may have had or they may have heard. So I think, I mentioned this earlier about kind of branding or protecting this bed and breakfast brands from being so bombarded by so many others that that claim to have that kind of same mantra of being a bed and breakfast. And I know I talked to a couple of your members while I was in Florida about this concept and how frustrating it is to go and do they do a Google search in your area, and there's only 30 B&Bs, but 50 come up, and so others are taking liberties with that name. So these are all things that we're going to have to address, and there's not time today to certainly don't want to like I said overstay my welcome by trying to say too much, but these are the things that are in our strategic plan and the things that we're working on with our membership, with our state association partners like yourselves. And these are I'm sure that there's others that I've missed, but I really think that these are the 7 things that we really need to be paying attention to, and where I think we can have some impact. I think there's a lot of frustration that we may not have the voice that we need, and I think that's probably true in some cases. We don't, the industry doesn't have a large pool of resources to lobby and to do some things that others do, but we're going to try to find a way to, like I said, to protect the bed and breakfast brand and to address those things that are happening in our communities that are not good for the industry. This is just the type of things that that we put together. I just shared this with you as kind of an example. Again, just thinking about issues and how we take the numbers that I shared with you, the statistics, and how we turn that into some sort of action so that we can see some benefits to this concept that we call advocacy. So I'm not going to spend much time on this. Just wanted you to be aware of the areas that we're looking in terms of having an advocacy platform. So there are specific issues. We're going to define those priorities. We're working on that now and expect to have that in early 2017. I mentioned to you the importance of alliances at the national, state, and regional level. Those are very important to us. And we're looking to develop those. Again, as a new organization, that takes some time. One thing which I'm sure that Patty and others on the board does for you all, but developing talking points, again, just not everybody's going to have time to be up to speed on all these key issues. So if there's 3 or 4 or 5 talking points that that you can define on your issues, that really helps when everybody's singing out of the same hymnal, so to speak. We talked about doing an online legislative alert, so we're going to be looking at that process so that when we see things, we can quickly get them out to you and hopefully get some responses. And then, again, I mentioned lobbying, so I do the lobbying for AIHP and for our members. And that is one of the member benefits of our association, and we're looking at where to focus at those lobbying efforts and what's that strategy based on the first thing I said, and that is their advocacy platform. So those two kind of are linked there. So with that said, I know that's a lot of talking on my part, and I appreciate the opportunity to just give you my viewpoint and just, from a snapshot perspective, we have a lot of work to do, and I'm excited about the opportunities. Certainly, it's a daunting task to try to address what we see out there, but we're prepared to do it, and we appreciate the support of our members and, like I said, the support of the associations. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments. I think the PowerPoint will be made available to you. I'm happy to share it with anybody if you want the numbers specifically. You see my email there. So if you want to just shoot me an email, I'm happy to share that with you. I put my cell phone. It's the best way to get a hold of me. Happy to talk at any time on any issue, member or not member. I'm always interested to hear your perspective and what you think are the types of things that we should be focused on. So, Patty, I guess I'll turn it back over to you. And if there's not any questions, I appreciate the time and everybody's patience.
Well, I appreciate it, Rob. You did a really good job. I did have one question. I'm not sure what in the numbers. I thought it was very interesting that 650.8 billion in revenue from the bed and breakfast industry. And I'd be interested in knowing, I doubt that those 30 billion that Airbnb made plus is not included in those numbers because they're considered themselves a tech company and probably don't report that way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Patty. I think this is where we're a little in the dark because I think its 2017 numbers are going to help answer your question. I think the home, so some of these numbers in U.S. travel are 2015. So yeah, there was definitely some impact there. Some of the other numbers, like I said, were before that, 11, 12, before I think you really saw that. So I think that part of it is really not been captured, which I'll be curious to see what that is. But I'd agree with you, and I want to make sure that that's part of it. What the results that comes out is so we can try to demonstrate how that home sharing is impacting the industry. What do they think the so.
Let me interrupt you too. Linda Smith asked, what do you need? What do you need us to do as innkeepers to support your advocacy efforts? And I know as a national association, it's really important, but there's a lot of legislative issues that are coming up in March for Florida in particular. And I'll be sending out a lot of information on that, and because our voice needs to be heard, and it's being coordinated with the lobbyist. I'm going to put you in touch with him too, Rob, because we're in partnership with the American Hotel Association as well as the Florida Restaurant.
Right.
But it does affect all the states. So anyway, Rob, I meant to send you an email from this guy who I'm working with as well, but at 2 o'clock today, I'll have a list of what those issues are.
Okay. Yeah.
And wait, there's one other question. What can we do to increase our market share?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So just back to Linda's question too, I think you answered that, Patty. But I think we're going to work with the states to try to provide you with some talking points. So I think if you can help us get a consistent, to Linda's question, a consistent message to your local officials, your state legislators, Senate, governor, et cetera. We'd like to coordinate. I don't have all the details worked out, but we're looking at putting together a coalition on a national level where we can try to garner some support. So stay tuned for that, and I'll follow up with you with more specifics. But keep doing what you're doing now with supporting what Patty and the board are doing for Florida. And I think increasing their market share. I had a very interesting conversation the other day with a couple of people, and there a couple things, but one, I think using the online, the OTAs or Airbnb as a marketing channel. I realize that there are a lot of challenges with and some frustration around entities, particularly lately with Airbnb and HomeAway and the other places. But I've heard some really compelling arguments that you should still use those as marketing channels. We are committed to trying to address the concerns that we all have about the way that they're operating and the fairness issue and the taxation issue. So we're going to get those things addressed, but don't not use it as a marketing channel, because I heard that 1 million people a day on average are staying in Airbnb properties, and we polled our AHP members a couple months ago, and not everybody's using Airbnb, but many of them are. And we talked, again, the frustration stuff is a separate issue, but the marketing channel is a viable way to. And the other thing I would say is to really understand the travelers from your area if you're not doing this. So regionally, through your local CVB, obviously through Visit Florida, you have some great resources there in Florida. But understand, so if you're a drive-to destination or if people would tend to fly to your destination, really understand, if you don't, where the travelers are coming from, so that you can tailor your offerings and the things that you are doing to attract your guests. You can tailor it to those specific types of guests. I'm not sure that everybody's doing that, and I think if people are just marketing to market and not being more specific, then may not be as effective. So just two things, but happy to have a conversation about anything else or more ideas.
Hey, Rob, I hate to interrupt, but let me bring something to everybody's attention, which I'm not sure we've had this conversation about yet, but one of our inns in Florida is getting a sales tax audit. And they're having a hard time being able to prove that the OTAs have actually paid the sales tax. For example, bedandbreakfast.com is owned by HomeAway, which is owned by Expedia. So they're not being able to get the proof that the sales tax was paid on the revenue. I imagine that that's going to be a big issue for anybody who gets audited when the OTAs or Airbnb, whoever winds up paying those sales tax, is being willing to prove that they paid it. The may wind up paying that. Have you heard that?
Yes, we're having that problem here in Pennsylvania as well. And Patty, our local bed and breakfast association, which does a great job, is working on that as well. So we may need to put our heads together, Patty, and figure out, how we can address that.
Or just make our membership aware. I mean, it's only come to my attention recently, and it hasn't been resolved for this one in particular innkeeper, but anybody who is using an OTA where they're collecting the sales tax and you're just getting the net, a lot of times people just dump revenue into revenue, and maybe that revenue should be dumped, receive it as maybe this is my OTA revenue versus the revenue I collected taxes on, because at least you know the numbers and what you're looking at from the different companies,
Yeah, I have that one on my list. So thanks for saying that, because, if we need, I'm not sure what we can do in the national level, because of the way states are doing it, but we're trying to figure out what we can do. And that's one of the things, is how do we know that those taxes are being paid, and what's that process? And in Pennsylvania, it's behind the scenes, so nobody's really sure.
Yeah, I know. It's just something to think about. Someone else made a comment that they don't pay the sales tax. The inn is required to pay them. It depends on who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And that is really the problem. And the ones that have collected, like bedandbreakfast.com had collected the sales tax, and it gets just so out of control. So anyway, it's off topic a little bit, but it's something that is going to affect us if you ever get audited. That's all. So
Yeah, no, we'd like to put together a little toolkit. Again, these things it's taking some time, but just, it just would address, like maybe the top 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 questions that you may get as an innkeeper or things you need to pay attention to, and like that, and that's a good example of one. So might be able to
yeah,
put a resource guide together, I guess, is a better
yeah.
idea. That's something we're looking at. So
Well, thank you for your time, Rob. I know that
yeah,
we have conference calls at 2, and I so appreciate it. And the others that have registered that haven't been able to hear this live, will be able to come in and hear the recording later. So I
yeah,
appreciate it.
that's
This is
great.
all
Yeah,
left over from the conference that was interrupted
yeah.
from the hurricane. So
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that, we all were feeling for what you all had to go through. So, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody. I know it was a very, very difficult situation.
well, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Thanks for your support and thanks for including me. Yeah,
All right, thank
yeah,
you so much for attending. And if you want to review this recording, all you have to do is hit into the link to get to this after it's been downloaded. You'll be able to hear it again. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
yeah. You too. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Happy holidays.
You too. Bye.